A Hell's Angel rents a room to a shy girl. Unaware she's a rival's daughter. The morning sun beat down on the dusty country road as Lily St. John made her way toward the farmhouse, her small duffel bag feeling heavier with each step. Sweat trickled down her back, but she pressed forward, drawn by the promise of a fresh start. The old mailbox read Harrison in faded letters. Ahead, a modest two-story farmhouse stood against the cloudless sky, its white paint weathered but well-maintained. A worn pickup truck sat in the gravel driveway, and the porch steps creaked under her feet as she climbed them. Lily's heart hammered in her chest. She'd seen the "Room for Rent" sign in town last week, and after days of gathering her courage, she'd finally made the journey out here. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her light summer dress, trying to look presentable despite the heat and dust from her walk. The screen door needed fresh paint, and through it, she could see a solid wooden door with a brass knocker. Taking a deep breath, Lily raised her hand and knocked 3 times, the sound seeming too loud in the morning quiet. Heavy footsteps approached from inside. Lily stepped back instinctively as the door swung open, revealing a man who filled the entire doorframe. Rex "Bear" Harrison stood well over 6 feet tall, his muscular arms covered in intricate tattoos that disappeared beneath the sleeves of his black t-shirt. His beard was long and peppered with gray, and his eyes, sharp and alert, studied her with obvious suspicion. "Can I help you?" His voice was deep and gravelly, matching his intimidating appearance. Lily swallowed hard, but forced herself to meet his gaze. I saw your sign in town, about the room for rent." Rex's expression remained neutral, but his eyes narrowed slightly. "Most folks take one look at me and turn around." "I'm not most folks," Lily said quietly, surprising herself with her boldness. "I need a place to stay, and I can pay 3 months' rent in advance." He crossed his arms, leaning against the doorframe. "It's quiet out here. No parties, no drama, no trouble. That gonna be a problem?" "No drama is exactly what I'm looking for," Lily replied, clutching her bag tighter. The weight of her past seemed to press down on her shoulders, but she kept her voice steady. Rex studied her for what felt like an eternity. His gaze wasn't unkind, just careful, calculating. Finally, he straightened up and stepped back from the doorway. $400 a month, utilities included. You keep to yourself, I'll do the same." He paused, then added, "Room's upstairs, first door on the right." Relief flooded through Lily's body. She nodded, reaching for her wallet. "Thank you, Mr. Harrison." "Just Rex," he corrected, holding the door open wider. "Or Bear. Most people call me Bear." Lily stepped inside, the cool air of the house a welcome relief from the morning heat. The interior was simple but clean, with worn wooden floors and basic furniture. It smelled of coffee and wood polish, homey despite its sparse furnishings. As she crossed the threshold, Lily felt something shift inside her. Maybe it was hope, or maybe just exhaustion finally catching up with her. But for the first time in months, she felt like she could breathe. She was far from her father's reach, far from the life she'd left behind. In this quiet farmhouse, with this intimidating but straightforward man, she might finally find the peace she'd been searching for. The living room was a study in rustic simplicity. Wooden beams crossed the ceiling, and a large stone fireplace dominated one wall. Lily's heels clicked softly against the hardwood floors as she took in her surroundings. A worn leather couch faced an old TV, and a bookshelf lined with paperbacks filled one corner. "Kitchen's through there," Rex said, gesturing to an arched doorway. "You're welcome to use it. Just clean up after yourself." His massive frame made the room feel smaller somehow, but his voice had softened slightly. Lily nodded, clutching her bag closer. Thank you. I like to cook. I won't make a mess. Rex raised an eyebrow. You eat yet? When she shook her head, he added, Was just about to make dinner. Nothing fancy, but there's plenty. The kitchen was surprisingly well kept, with copper pots hanging from a rack and a collection of cast-iron skillets on the wall. Rex moved with unexpected grace for such a big man, pulling ingredients from the fridge while Lily perched uncertainly on a wooden stool at the counter. Hope you like chili, he said, chopping an onion with practiced ease. It's what's on the menu tonight. That sounds nice, Lily replied softly, watching him work. His tattoos caught her attention, intricate designs that spoke of a life very different from the quiet farmhouse. They ate in awkward silence, the only sounds the clink of spoons against bowls and the distant chirping of crickets outside. The chili was good, surprisingly so, with just the right amount of heat. Lily could feel Rex watching her between bites, probably wondering what someone like her was doing in a place like this. I'll show you around after, Rex said, breaking the silence. Place isn't big, but you should know where everything is. The tour was brief, but thorough. Rex pointed out the bathroom they'd share, the laundry room in the basement, and the back door that led to a small garden. His words were few, but clear and direct, like everything else about him. Finally, they climbed the creaking stairs to the second floor. This is you, Rex said, opening the first door on the right. Lock works, keys on the dresser. I'm down the hall if you need anything. The room was simple but clean. A double bed with fresh linens stood against one wall, a dresser and small desk against another. A window overlooked the front yard, and a mirror hung on the wall beside it. Thank you, Lily said, setting her bag down. This is perfect. Rex nodded once. Get settled in. We'll sort out the paperwork tomorrow. He turned and walked away, his heavy footsteps fading down the hall. Lily sank onto the bed, the springs creaking softly beneath her. In the mirror, her reflection looked back at her, a woman out of place, with her designer dress and carefully styled hair, sitting in this rough-hewn farmhouse room. She wondered if she'd made the right choice. Coming to this remote place, putting her trust in a stranger who looked like he belonged in a motorcycle gang. But as she heard Rex moving around downstairs, his presence somehow reassuring despite its unfamiliarity, she felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe this was exactly where she needed to be, somewhere no one would think to look for Victor St. John's daughter. The morning sun filtered through the kitchen windows, casting long shadows across the countertops. Lily moved as quietly as she could, measuring coffee grounds into the filter. She'd woken early, hoping to avoid any awkward interactions, but the old floorboards creaked with every step. The coffee maker gurgled to life, filling the kitchen with its rich aroma. Lily searched through the cabinets, trying to remember which one held the mugs. She'd only been here a day, and everything still felt foreign. Heavy footsteps approached from the hallway. Lily tensed, nearly dropping a mug as Rex's massive frame filled the doorway. He wore a faded black t-shirt that stretched across his broad shoulders, his beard slightly unkempt from sleep. Morning, he rumbled, heading straight for the coffee maker. Been up long? No, just a few minutes, Lily replied softly, stepping aside to give him space. I hope you don't mind me using your coffee maker. Rex shrugged. Kitchen's yours to use too. That's the deal. He reached past her to grab a mug from the cabinet she'd been searching earlier. Mugs are up here, by the way. Thank you. Lily wrapped her hands around her own mug, letting the warmth seep into her fingers. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the gentle tick of the wall clock. Days passed in similar fashion. Lily kept to herself, reading in her room or taking walks down the quiet country road. Rex worked in his garage, the sound of tools and occasional motorcycle engines drifting through the windows. They shared the same space, but rarely crossed paths. One evening, as Lily sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, Rex came in from the garage. His hands were stained with grease, and he headed straight for the sink to wash up. "Dinner's in an hour," he said, surprising her. "Made too much stew. You're welcome to join." Lily hesitated, then nodded. "That would be nice. Thank you." Later, as they sat across from each other at the worn kitchen table, Lily found herself speaking before she could think better of it. "My father," she started, then paused, stirring her stew. "He's a businessman, very successful, very distant." Rex's spoon stopped halfway to his mouth. He set it down slowly, his expression unreadable. "We haven't spoken in a while," Lily continued, her voice quiet but steady. "He was always more interested in his empire than his family. Sometimes I think he saw us as just another asset to manage." Rex nodded once, his dark eyes studying her. He didn't ask questions or offer platitudes, and somehow that made it easier. "That's partly why I'm here," she admitted. "Needed some space to figure things out on my own." "Everyone's got their reasons," Rex replied gruffly, returning to his stew. The way he said it suggested he had his own story to tell, but his tone made it clear he wouldn't be sharing it anytime soon. Lily understood. Some stories were better left untold, at least for now. They finished their meal in companionable silence, the tension between them easing just a little. The screen door creaked as Rex stepped onto the back porch. Lily sat on the old wooden steps, her blonde hair catching the silver moonlight. She'd been out there for over an hour, just watching the stars paint patterns across the dark country sky. Rex had noticed her through the kitchen window while doing dishes, debating whether to leave her to her thoughts. He cleared his throat softly. "Mind some company?" Lily turned, offering a small smile. "Not at all." Rex settled his large frame onto the step beside her, leaving enough space between them to keep things comfortable. He pulled 2 bottles of beer from his jacket pocket, holding one out to her. "Thought you might want something to take the edge off." "Thank you." She accepted the bottle, her fingers brushing against his briefly. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the crickets chirp and watching fireflies dance in the darkness. The night air was cool and clean, carrying the scent of wild honeysuckle from somewhere in the darkness. "Used to do this a lot," Rex said finally, his voice low and gravelly. "Back when I was riding with the Angels, we'd park our bikes somewhere remote, drink beer, and watch the stars." He took a long pull from his bottle. "Simpler times, maybe. Dangerous, too." Lily turned to study his profile. "Why did you leave?" Rex's jaw tightened. "Some things happened. Betrayals. Lost people I cared about." He shrugged, his massive shoulders rising and falling. "Decided I needed a different life." "I understand that," Lily said softly. "Needing to leave everything behind." She traced her finger around the rim of her bottle. "My father's world. It's all about power and control. Everything has a price tag, even relationships." Her voice cracked slightly. "I couldn't breathe there anymore." "Your old man sounds like a real piece of work," Rex commented, his tone careful. "He is." Lily took a small sip of her beer. "Everything has to be done his way. Every decision, every relationship, every aspect of my life. He wanted to control it all. Even now, I sometimes feel like I'm still trapped in his shadow." Rex nodded slowly, understanding in his eyes. "Shadows can be hard to shake." "Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever really be free of it," Lily admitted. "If I'll ever stop looking over my shoulder." "Freedom's worth fighting for," Rex said, his voice firm. "Trust me on that." They lapsed into silence again, but it felt different now, more comfortable, like they'd crossed some invisible boundary. The night wrapped around them like a blanket, and the stars continued their eternal dance overhead. Rex glanced at Lily's profile, noting the way she held herself, straight-backed but somehow fragile, like a bird ready to take flight at the first sign of danger. Something stirred in his chest, an unfamiliar protective instinct that caught him off guard. He'd spent years building walls around himself, keeping everyone at arm's length. But watching her now, vulnerable yet brave enough to share her truth, those walls didn't seem so important anymore. He wanted to keep her safe, to make sure she never had to look over her shoulder again. The feeling surprised him. He couldn't remember the last time he'd wanted to protect anyone but himself. They sat together under the vast expanse of stars, each lost in their own thoughts, while the weight of their shared confidences settled between them like an unspoken promise. The morning sunlight streamed through the kitchen window as Lily washed her breakfast dishes. The peaceful routine of the past few days had started to make her feel almost normal again, almost safe. Her phone buzzed on the counter, making her jump. The display showed her mother's number. Lily's hands trembled as she answered. "Mom?" "Lily, dear." Her mother's voice was thin, strained. "I can't talk long. Is everything okay? Just be careful, There was a rustling sound, followed by muffled voices. "I have to go. Take care of yourself." The line went dead. Lily stared at the phone, her heart pounding. The dish she'd been washing slipped from her fingers, clattering loudly in the sink. She gripped the counter's edge, trying to steady herself as waves of anxiety washed over her. "Everything all right?" Rex's deep voice came from behind her. Lily straightened quickly, plastering on a smile. "Fine. Just dropped a plate." But Rex didn't move from the doorway. His eyes, sharp and observant, took in her white-knuckled grip on the counter, the slight shake in her shoulders. "That wasn't about a dropped plate." "It's nothing," she insisted, turning back to the sink. "Really?" "Lily?" His voice was gentle but firm. "Something's got you spooked." She kept scrubbing the same dish over and over. "It was just my mother calling." "Must have been some call." Rex moved closer, leaning against the counter beside her. His presence was solid, reassuring despite his intimidating size. Lily's movements slowed, then stopped. The weight of everything she'd been carrying suddenly felt too heavy. "She was trying to warn me," she whispered. "About what?" She set the dish down, carefully, drying her hands on a dish towel. "My father." The words felt like rocks in her throat. "He's looking for me." Rex shifted slightly. "Your father?" "Victor St. John." The name fell from her lips like a curse. The kitchen went absolutely still. From the corner of her eye, Lily saw Rex's massive frame tense, though he tried to hide it. His fingers drummed once on the counter before going still. "St. John," he repeated, his voice carefully neutral. "That's quite a name." Lily wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the warm morning sun. "I know what kind of man he is. That's why I left." She couldn't bring herself to look at Rex, afraid of what she might see in his face. I can't go back there." Rex said nothing for a long moment, but she could feel the tension radiating from him. When he finally spoke, his voice was measured, controlled. "How long has he been looking for you?" "I don't know exactly, but if my mother's calling..." Lily shook her head, unable to finish the thought. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words. Rex's breathing had changed, becoming deeper, more deliberate, as if he was working to keep himself calm. His massive hands were perfectly still on the counter now, but there was a rigidity to his posture that hadn't been there before. Lily finally gathered the courage to look up at him. His face was a mask of careful neutrality, but something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, anger, calculation, before he could hide it completely. Rex stood at his living room window, scanning the quiet country road for the 10th time that morning. His jaw clenched as he watched a pickup truck rumble past, relaxing only when it disappeared around the bend. Every passing vehicle made his muscles tense, memories of darker days flooding back unbidden. He moved through the house like a caged bear, checking locks and peering out windows. The name Victor St. John echoed in his mind, bringing with it the bitter taste of old betrayals. Images flashed through his thoughts: late-night meetings, handshake deals gone wrong, brothers lost to greed and deception. In the kitchen, he could hear Lily moving about, making lunch. The soft domestic sound seemed out of place against his dark memories. She hummed quietly, unaware of the storm brewing in his mind. Rex's weathered hands absently traced the tattoos on his forearm, each one a chapter of his past life. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the yard as Rex sat on the porch, cleaning his old motorcycle. The familiar routine usually brought him peace, but today his thoughts wouldn't quiet. He remembered the first time he'd crossed paths with Victor's organization, back when the hellsangels still commanded respect in these parts. The memory made his hands still on the chrome. "That's beautiful." Lily's voice startled him from his brooding. She stood in the doorway, holding 2 glasses of iced tea. "The motorcycle, I mean." Rex grunted in acknowledgement, accepting the offered drink. Lily settled onto the porch steps, her presence both comforting and unsettling. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unasked questions. "You know him, don't you?" she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "My father." Rex's shoulders stiffened. He set down his polishing cloth, his movements deliberately slow. "What makes you say that?" "I saw your face this morning when I mentioned his name." Lily turned to look at him, her eyes searching. "There's history there." The old biker stood up, his imposing frame casting a shadow over her. His expression darkened, and the warmth that had started to show in their interactions over the past few days vanished. "Some history's better left buried," he said gruffly. "Please," Lily pressed, rising to her feet. "If there's something I should know—" "Drop it!" Rex's voice was hard as steel. He turned away, gathering his cleaning supplies with sharp, angry movements. "Your father and that's ancient business. Leave it alone." Lily took a step toward him. "But if he comes here, then we'll deal with it," Rex cut her off. He paused at the door, his broad shoulders tense. "But I'm not digging up old graves today." Without another word, he disappeared into the house, leaving Lily alone on the porch. She watched his retreating form through the screen door, feeling the distance between them expand like a chasm. The connection they'd begun to build over shared meals and quiet conversations seemed to crumble in the face of this unspoken past. Lily wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly feeling very alone despite the shelter of Rex's home. Inside, she could hear him moving around, his footsteps heavier than usual. The wall between them was almost tangible now, built of secrets and old wounds neither was ready to share. Lily sat cross-legged on her bed, her laptop balanced on her knees. The afternoon sun streamed through her window, but her attention was fixed on the screen before her. She could hear Rex's heavy footsteps downstairs, pacing like a caged animal. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she typed her father's name into various search engines. News articles, business records, and court documents filled her screen. With each click, her stomach twisted tighter. "Victor St. John accused of fraud in development deal," one headline read. She clicked through to another. "Local businessman linked to organized crime." The articles painted a picture she'd never wanted to see. Her father's empire built on lies, threats, and violence. Her hands trembled as she opened a PDF of court records. The names jumped out at her: racketeering, money laundering, witness intimidation. Though nothing had ever stuck, the pattern was clear. Her father hadn't just bent the rules, he'd broken them completely. A photo caught her eye. Her father shaking hands with a man she recognized from the news, someone who'd later disappeared without a trace. The date stamp showed it was taken just weeks before the man vanished. Lily's throat went dry. She dug deeper, following digital breadcrumbs through years of suspicious dealings. Each discovery felt like a punch to the gut. How had she never known? Or had she simply chosen not to see? The sun had set by the time she closed her laptop. Her mind raced with everything she'd learned. The quiet house felt suffocating now, filled with the weight of secrets, both her father's and Rex's. Lily found Rex in the kitchen, his massive frame hunched over a cup of coffee. The overhead light cast harsh shadows across his face, making him look more intimidating than ever. But she wouldn't let herself be scared away. Not now. "You knew," she said, her voice stronger than she felt. "About my father. About everything." Rex's cup stopped halfway to his mouth. He set it down slowly, the ceramic making a soft click against the wooden table. "Lily, don't." She stepped closer, holding up her phone with one of the articles displayed. "I found it all. The fraud, the violence, the people who disappeared." Her voice cracked. "Did you know?" The silence stretched between them like a physical thing. Rex's tattooed hands wrapped around his coffee cup, knuckles white with tension. "Yes," he finally said, his voice rough. "I knew." Lily sank into the chair across from him, her legs suddenly weak. "Why didn't you tell me? Wasn't my story to tell?" Rex looked up at her, his eyes surprisingly gentle. "And you're not him, Lily. You never were." "But I'm his daughter," she whispered, tears threatening to fall. "All those horrible things he did. I lived in that house. I spent his money. Stop!" Rex's voice was firm but kind. "You were a kid. None of that was your fault." He pushed his coffee aside, leaning forward. "Look, I've known men like your father my whole life, but I've never known anyone like you." The simple honesty in his words made Lily's chest ache. She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw beyond the tattoos and gruff exterior to the wisdom and understanding in his eyes. "You're nothing like him," Rex continued. "That's why you left. That's why you're here." The kitchen grew quiet after their confrontation. Rex stood up and walked to the window, his broad shoulders tense under his worn t-shirt. The night had settled in, wrapping the farmhouse in darkness. "I wasn't always like this," he said finally, turning back to face Lily. "The tattoos, the reputation, it all started when I was young and angry at the world." Lily stayed in her chair, watching him carefully. The kitchen light cast shadows across his face, making the lines there deeper, more pronounced. "The angels became my family," Rex continued, his voice low and rough. "We had a code, you know? Loyalty above everything." He let out a heavy breath. "Your father. He understood that code. Used it against us." Lily's hands tightened around her empty coffee cup. "What happened?" "My best friend, Jake." Rex's jaw clenched. "He was like a brother to me. Your father hired him, promised him legitimate work, a way out of the life." He shook his head slowly. "A week later, Jake disappeared. Never found his body." "I'm so sorry," Lily whispered, her heart aching for the pain she could see in Rex's eyes. "The police couldn't prove anything, of course. Your father was too smart for that." Rex's fingers traced an old scar on his forearm. "After that, Everything fell apart. The club split, people took sides. I walked away before it got worse. Lily stood up, moving closer to him. Despite his size, despite knowing who he used to be, she wasn't afraid. Is that why you left the Angels? Partly. Rex turned to face her fully. Saw too many good people destroyed by greed and power. Realized I didn't want to end up like that. The confession hung between them, heavy with shared understanding. Lily reached out, hesitantly touching his arm. Rex didn't pull away. I used to think I could change him, she said softly. Every time he'd do something cruel, I'd tell myself it was just business, that somewhere inside he was still my dad. Her voice cracked. But he's not, is he? He never really was. Rex's expression softened. Some people can't change, Lily. They don't want to. I keep thinking he'll find me, she admitted, wrapping her arms around herself. That one day I'll look up and he'll be there, ready to drag me back into his world. Her eyes met Rex's, vulnerable and afraid. He never lets anything go. Never. Hey. Rex's voice was gentle but firm. You're safe here. His hand found her shoulder, warm and steady. I won't let him hurt you. You don't know what he's capable of. Maybe not, Rex agreed, but I know what I'm capable of, and I protect what's mine. The words settled around them, a promise and a declaration all at once. Lily felt tears prick at her eyes, overwhelmed by the fierce protectiveness in Rex's voice. For the first time since she'd left her father's house, she felt truly safe. They stood there in the quiet kitchen, the distance between them smaller than it had ever been. Their pasts might have been different, but their scars? Those they understood. Those they shared. The morning sun had barely risen when Rex's phone buzzed. He stepped onto the front porch, careful not to wake Lily, and answered the call. Yeah? Bear, it's Snake. The familiar raspy voice of his old friend came through clear and urgent. Got some news you need to hear. Rex's shoulders tensed. Snake wouldn't call unless it was serious. What's going on? Victor's getting closer. My contacts spotted his men asking questions in town yesterday. Snake paused. They're showing her picture around, Bear. Won't be long before someone recognizes her. Rex's jaw clenched as he looked back at the house. Through the kitchen window, he could see Lily moving around, making her morning coffee. The sight of her, so peaceful and unaware, made his chest tighten. How much time? He asked, keeping his voice low. Days, maybe less. Victor's pulled in some heavy hitters. Real nasty types. Snake's voice dropped. You need to be careful, brother. These aren't the usual thugs. Appreciate the heads up. Rex ran a hand through his beard. Keep me posted if you hear anything else. After hanging up, Rex stood on the porch for a long moment, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. The peaceful scene felt like a lie now, knowing what was coming. Inside, Lily looked up from her coffee with a smile that faded when she saw his expression. What's wrong? Rex closed the door behind him, checking the locks twice. Got a call from an old friend. Your father's men are in town. The color drained from Lily's face. Her hands trembled as she set down her coffee cup. How close? Too close. Rex moved to the windows, drawing the curtains. We need to be more careful now. No more trips into town, no unnecessary risks. Lily wrapped her arms around herself, something she did when she was scared. I should leave. I'm putting you in danger by staying here. Not happening. Rex's voice was firm but gentle. He crossed the kitchen and stood in front of her. Running now would only make you more vulnerable. But my father... Your father doesn't know this area like I do. Rex placed his hands on her shoulders, steadying her. This is my territory. I've got friends here, people who owe me favors. We're safer staying put." Lily looked up at him, her eyes searching his face. "Why are you helping me? After everything my father did to you and your friends?" "Because you're not him." Rex's voice softened. "And because I made you a promise." She nodded slowly, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. "What do we do?" "For now, we stay close to home. I need you to trust me on this, Lily." His hands squeezed her shoulders gently. "No leaving the property without telling me first. Keep your phone on you at all times." "Okay." Lily's voice was quiet but steady. She placed her hand over his where it rested on her shoulder. "I do trust you, Rex. More than I've trusted anyone in a long time." The simple admission hit him hard. Rex knew in that moment he'd do whatever it took to keep her safe, to protect the trust she'd placed in him. He'd failed to protect Jake all those years ago, but he wouldn't fail Lily. Not now. Not ever. The afternoon stretched long and quiet in the farmhouse. Lily sat by the window, staring out at the empty dirt road through a gap in the curtains. The walls felt closer today, pressing in on her like the bars of a cage. She'd traded one prison for another, her father's mansion for Rex's farmhouse. Her fingers drummed restlessly against the windowsill. A chickadee landed on the bird feeder outside, pecked at some seeds, then flew away. Free. Unrestricted. "Must be nice," she whispered. The sound of Rex's heavy boots on the wooden floor made her turn. He was checking the locks again, something he'd done 3 times already today. Each click of a deadbolt reminded her that she was the reason for all this caution, all this worry. She watched him move through the house with purpose, his massive frame somehow graceful despite its size. His face was etched with concentration, shoulders tense with the weight of responsibility. Her responsibility. "I'm sorry," she said softly. Rex paused mid-stride, turning to face her. "What for?" "All of this." Lily gestured vaguely at the locked windows, the drawn curtains. "You shouldn't have to live like this because of me, because of who my father is." "Lily." "No, please." She stood up, wrapping her arms around herself. "I see what this is doing to you. The constant vigilance, the worry. You can't even live normally in your own home anymore." Rex crossed the room, his expression softening. "That's not on you." "But it is," the words burst out of her. "Everything I touch gets corrupted by his influence. I thought I could escape it, but I'm just dragging you into his world now. Maybe I should just go." "Stop." Rex's voice was firm but gentle. He moved closer, his presence filling the space between them. "Look at me, Lily." She raised her eyes to meet his, seeing the determination there. "You have nothing to be ashamed of," he said. "Nothing. You didn't choose your father. You didn't choose his actions. The only choice you made was to break free from him, and that's something to be proud of." Tears welled in her eyes. "But you're risking everything." "My choice." Rex's hand found her shoulder, steady and warm. "I'm not letting you go just because of your past. You need somewhere safe? You've got it, right here, as long as you need it." "Why?" Her voice cracked. "After everything he did to you and your friends. Because you're not him." Rex's eyes held hers. "Because I see who you really are, someone brave enough to walk away from everything she knew to build something better. That takes guts, Lily. Real courage." A tear slipped down her cheek. Rex reached up and gently wiped it away with his thumb. "You're not a burden," he said softly. "You're not your father's shadow. You're just Lily, and Lily is welcome here." She stepped forward and pressed her face against his chest, her tears flowing freely now. Rex's arms came around her, strong and secure, offering the safety she'd been searching for her whole life. "Thank you," she whispered into his shirt. His hand smoothed over her hair. "As long as you need," he repeated. "I mean it." Standing there in the fading afternoon light, wrapped in Rex's protective embrace, Lily finally felt the doubts begin to fade. Maybe she wasn't just running anymore. Maybe she'd finally found somewhere to stay. Rex burst through the front door, his face tight with worry. The screen door slammed behind him as he strode into the living room where Lily sat reading. She looked up, startled by his sudden entrance. "We need to talk," he said, his voice gruff with urgency. He ran a hand through his beard, a gesture she'd come to recognize as a sign of his agitation. Lily set her book aside, her heart beginning to race. "What's wrong?" "Got a call from Tommy." Rex paced the worn carpet, his heavy boots making dull thuds against the floor. "Your father's men. They found where you were staying before, the apartment in Cedar Grove." The color drained from Lily's face. She'd thought she'd covered her tracks well enough. "How?" "Doesn't matter how. What matters is they're getting closer." Rex stopped pacing and faced her. "We need to be more careful. No more trips to town, no more afternoon walks. You stay inside where I can keep an eye on things." Lily's shoulders tensed. "For how long?" "As long as it takes." Rex moved to the window, pulling the curtains shut. "I've got some friends who can help keep watch, but we need to stay sharp." "Rex." Lily stood up, her hands clenched at her sides. "I can't live like this forever." "It won't be forever, just until we figure something out." He checked his phone again, scrolling through messages. "I'm thinking of setting up some security cameras, maybe get a better alarm system." "Stop!" Lily's voice was quiet but firm. "Just stop." Rex looked up, surprised by her tone. "I left my father because I was tired of living in a cage," she said. "I won't do it again, even if it's meant to protect me." "This isn't the same thing, isn't it?" Lily stepped closer to him. "Being told where I can go, what I can do, who I can see, having every moment of my day monitored and controlled." Her voice cracked slightly. "I know you mean well, Rex, but I can't live like that again." Rex's expression softened. "I'm just trying to keep you safe." "I know." She touched his arm gently. "But I need to know what the plan is. Really is. Because hiding here forever isn't going to work." He was quiet for a long moment, his internal struggle visible on his face. Finally, he sighed. "I've got a place, up north near the Canadian border. It's remote, completely off the grid. We could go there just until things cool down." "We?" Lily's eyebrows rose. "You think I'm letting you go alone?" Rex's voice was gruff but tender. "Besides, it's my cabin. Someone's got to show you how the generator works." Lily studied his face, seeing the concern there, but also the determination to protect her. Not control her. Protect her. There was a difference, she realized. A big one. "Okay," she said finally. "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow morning, early. We'll take the back roads, stay off the main highways." He hesitated. "It won't be fancy like you're used to." "I don't need fancy," she interrupted. "I just need to be free and safe." She met his eyes. "With someone I trust." Rex nodded, understanding passing between them. They would face whatever came next together, not as jailer and prisoner, but as equals, as partners. "Pack light," he said. "We leave at dawn." The old pickup truck rumbled down winding back roads, kicking up dust in its wake. Rex's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, his eyes constantly checking the rearview mirror. Beside him, Lily sat quietly, watching the landscape change from farmland to dense forest. They'd been driving for hours, taking detours and alternate routes to throw off any potential followers. The morning sun had given way to afternoon heat, making the truck's cabin stuffy despite the open windows. "We'll need to stop for gas soon," Rex said, breaking the long silence. His voice was rough from disuse. Lily nodded, fidgeting with the map spread across her lap. "There's a small station about 20 miles ahead if we stay on this road." Rex grunted in acknowledgement. His beard couldn't hide the tension in his jaw, the way his eyes narrowed at every passing vehicle. Lily watched him, noting how his massive shoulders remained rigid, ready for trouble. The truck hit a pothole, making them both bounce in their seats. Lily's hand instinctively reached out, steadying herself against Rex's arm. He glanced at her, his expression softening for just a moment before returning to its vigilant state. "Sorry about the rough ride," he muttered. "These back roads aren't exactly highway quality." "I don't mind," Lily said softly. "It's better than the alternative." They pulled into the gas station, a weathered building with 2 ancient pumps out front. Rex filled the tank while Lily went inside for supplies. Her hands trembled slightly as she paid for water and snacks, aware of how exposed they were. Back on the road, the forest grew thicker, the trees pressing closer to the narrow dirt track. Shadows danced across the windshield as sunlight filtered through the canopy above. The isolation should have been frightening, but Lily found it oddly comforting. "We're about an hour out," Rex said, navigating a sharp turn. "The cabin's well hidden. Your father's men won't find it easily." Lily studied his profile, noting the weariness around his eyes. "You should rest when we get there." "I'll rest when you're safe," he replied, but his tone was gentle. The last stretch of road was barely more than a trail. Rex handled it skillfully, guiding the truck between trees and over rough terrain. Finally, they emerged into a small clearing. A rustic cabin stood before them, its wooden walls weathered by years of exposure. "Home sweet home," Rex said, parking the truck. "At least for now." They carried their bags inside, Rex checking each room methodically before allowing Lily to enter. The cabin was simple but solid. A main room with a stone fireplace, a small kitchen, and 2 bedrooms off to the side. Lily ran her hand along a wooden counter, taking in their temporary sanctuary. "It's perfect." Rex allowed himself a small smile, the first she'd seen all day. He started to respond but stopped abruptly, his body tensing. A twig snapped outside. Rex moved silently to the window, peering through the gathering dusk. Lily held her breath, fear crawling up her spine. 3 sharp knocks echoed through the cabin. Rex motioned for Lily to stay back, reaching for the gun at his waist. He moved toward the door with the quiet grace of a man used to dangerous situations. His massive frame blocked Lily's view as he gripped the handle. The knocking came again, more insistent this time. Rex took a deep breath, his hand steady on the door handle. With one fluid motion, he yanked it open, ready to face whatever waited on the other side. The door swung open, revealing Mike Chains Peterson, his weathered face familiar and trusted. Rex's shoulders relaxed slightly, though his hand stayed near his weapon. "Chains, what are you doing here?" Rex's voice was gruff but relieved. Mike stepped into the cabin's dim light, his boots heavy on the wooden floor. "Bear, it's been a while." His eyes darted to Lily, who stood frozen in the corner. "I heard you might be heading this way." Rex's expression darkened. "How'd you know where to find us?" "I got my ways," Mike said, shifting his weight. "Listen, we need to talk, outside." Rex planted his feet firmly. "Whatever you've got to say, you can say it here." Mike's face twisted with something that looked like regret. "Victor St. John sends his regards." The words hit Rex like a physical blow. His muscles tensed as the betrayal sank in. "How much?" he growled. "Enough to set me up for life," Mike admitted, reaching slowly for his jacket. "I'm sorry, Bear. Times are tough. and a man's got to look out for himself. Rex moved lightning fast, positioning himself between Mike and Lily. We've known each other 20 years, Chains. 20 years! Which is why I'm giving you this chance, Mike said, his voice hardening. Step aside. Let me take the girl. No one needs to get hurt. Lily pressed herself against the wall, her heart hammering in her chest. Rex's massive frame blocked her view, but she could feel the tension crackling between the two men. You know I can't do that, Rex said quietly. Mike pulled out a gun, his movements deliberate. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Rex exploded into action. He lunged forward, grabbing Mike's wrist and slamming it against the doorframe. The gun clattered to the floor. Mike responded with a vicious right hook that caught Rex in the jaw. The two men crashed into the cabin's main room, years of friendship dissolving into desperate violence. Mike was skilled, but Rex fought with the fury of betrayal. They traded blows, knocking over furniture, neither willing to give ground. Mike managed to get Rex in a chokehold, but Rex drove his elbow back hard, connecting with Mike's ribs. The smaller man's grip loosened. Rex spun, using his superior size to throw Mike off balance. Run! Rex shouted to Lily. She darted towards the back door, but Mike lunged for her. Rex intercepted him, tackling him to the ground. They rolled across the floor, each fighting for dominance. Mike's fingers found the fallen gun. Rex saw it, too late. But before Mike could aim, Lily swung a cast iron pan with all her strength. It connected with Mike's head with a sickening thud. He crumpled to the floor, unconscious. Rex scrambled to his feet, breathing heavily. Blood trickled from a cut above his eye. We need to move, now! They grabbed their essential bags and ran to the truck. Rex gunned the engine, tires spinning in the dirt as they fled into the darkness. The headlights cut through the night as they bounced down the rough trail. Miles later, when they were sure no one was following, Rex pulled over. His hands were shaking on the wheel. I trusted him, he said, his voice raw. Known him since my first day with the Angels. Lily touched his arm gently. What do we do now? Rex stared at the dark road ahead. We can't keep running. If chains turned, anyone could. There's only one way to end this. We have to face my father, Lily finished quietly. Rex nodded grimly. It's time to take the fight to him. The motel room was small and dated, with peeling wallpaper and a flickering fluorescent light that hummed overhead. Rex sat on the edge of the bed, pressing an ice pack to his swollen jaw. Lily paced the worn carpet, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. I can't believe Mike would do that, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. All those years of friendship. Rex's expression hardened. Money changes people. Your father's good at finding everyone's price. Lily stopped pacing and sank into the room's only chair, a threadbare recliner that had seen better days. My father. She took a shaky breath. There's something you need to know about him, about his empire. Rex lowered the ice pack, giving her his full attention. The dim light cast shadows across his face, making his expression unreadable. Everything he built, Lily continued, her hands trembling, it's all based on lies and betrayal. He didn't just hurt your friends in the Angels. He's destroyed countless lives, families, businesses. She wiped at her eyes. I watched him do it, year after year. He'd invite people into his circle, gain their trust, then use whatever he learned against them. Rex leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. Why didn't you leave sooner? I tried, once, Lily said, her voice cracking. When I was 19. But he found me, brought me back, made me understand that everything I had, my education, my lifestyle, even my friends, it all came from him. He could take it away just as easily. She stood up again, unable to stay still. The worst part? He wanted me to be just like him. He'd bring me to meetings, make me watch as he destroyed people's lives. called it training, said I needed to learn how the real world works. Her voice grew bitter. I hated every minute of it. Rex's fists clenched. You're not like him, Lily. Not even close. Sometimes I wonder, she whispered. I stood by and watched it all happen. I never spoke up, never tried to stop him. You were a kid, Rex said firmly. He was your father. That's on him, not you. Lily turned to face him, tears streaming down her face. I can't keep running, Rex. I can't let him keep hurting people, but I'm scared. He's never going to stop coming after me. Rex stood up, crossing the room in 2 long strides. He placed his hands on her shoulders, steady and strong. Listen to me. Your father, he's just a man. A cruel, manipulative man, but still just flesh and blood. He's not all-powerful, no matter what he wants you to believe. What are we going to do? Lily asked, looking up at him. We're going to face him, Rex said, his voice firm with resolve. But not because he's forcing our hand. We do this because it's right, because you deserve to live your life without looking over your shoulder. Lily's hands found his, squeezing them tight. Why are you willing to risk everything for me? Rex's expression softened. Because this isn't just about taking down your father anymore. This is about us, you and me, and our right to live in peace. No more running, no more hiding. Us, Lily repeated softly, the word feeling right on her tongue. Us, Rex confirmed, pulling her into a protective embrace. They stood there in the dim motel room, 2 souls united against the darkness that had haunted them for so long. The night settled over the motel like a heavy blanket, wrapping everything in silence. Inside their room, Rex and Lily sat cross-legged on the bed, sharing a box of takeout Chinese food between them. The television hummed quietly in the background, neither of them paying attention to the late-night reruns flickering across the screen. Tell me about your house, Lily said, picking at her lo mein with plastic chopsticks. What made you choose that place? Rex smiled, a rare sight that softened his weathered features. It was the porch that sold me, wrapped all the way around the house. Perfect spot to watch the sunset. He took a bite of his food, chewing thoughtfully. Always wanted a place where I could just breathe. I loved that porch from the first day I arrived, Lily admitted. It felt like somewhere I could finally rest. We could add a swing, Rex suggested, his voice careful, tentative. One of those big wooden ones. Maybe plant some flowers along the railings. Lily's eyes lit up. Really? You'd want that? Yeah, he nodded, setting his container down. Been thinking about it for a while now. The place could use some color. They fell into a comfortable silence, both imagining the possibilities. Lily tucked her legs under her, wrapping her arms around her knees. What else would we do if we didn't have to worry about everything? Rex leaned back against the headboard. Well, that old barn out back, it's solid. Could fix it up, maybe turn it into a workshop. He glanced at her. You mentioned you liked painting before all this. You remembered that? Lily smiled, touched by the detail. I haven't picked up a brush in years. Part of the barn could be your studio, Rex continued. Lots of natural light in there. Lily closed her eyes, letting herself imagine it. I'd love that. And maybe we could have a garden. Nothing fancy, just some vegetables, maybe some herbs. Already got the space marked out, Rex admitted. South side of the house gets the best sun. They spent the next hour trading dreams back and forth, their voices soft in the dim light. A chicken coop, a fire pit for summer evenings, maybe even a dog or 2. Simple things, ordinary things. But to them, they felt like precious gems. Valuable because they had seemed impossible for so long. As the night grew deeper, Lily found herself fighting sleep, not wanting to let go of this peaceful moment. Rex noticed her drooping eyelids and cleared away the takeout containers, making sure she was comfortable before settling into the room's armchair. "Rex," Lily murmured, already half asleep. "Yeah?" "Thank you for letting me dream again." The peace of their evening shattered the next morning with the harsh ring of Rex's cell phone. The sound cut through the quiet like a knife, making them both jump. Rex grabbed the phone, his expression darkening as he checked the number. "Speaker," Lily whispered, her face pale. Rex nodded and pressed the button. "Hello, Rex." Victor Saint. John's voice filled the room, smooth and cold as ice. "It's been a long time." Rex's jaw tightened. "Not long enough, Victor. I think it's time we settled our differences," Victor continued. "For Lily's sake, if nothing else." Lily's hands were shaking, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "Leave us alone, Father." "Impossible, my dear, you know that." There was a pause, then, "The old lumber mill. 2 hours. Just the three of us. To sort this out, once and for all." The line went dead before either of them could respond. Rex and Lily looked at each other, the weight of the moment heavy between them. Their peaceful dreams of the night before felt very far away as they began to prepare for what was to come. The old lumber mill loomed before them, a hulking skeleton of rusted metal and weathered wood against the morning sky. Rex parked his truck behind a stack of long-abandoned logs, the engine's rumble fading into an oppressive silence. Dust motes danced in the shafts of sunlight that pierced through the building's broken windows. Lily's hands were steady as she unbuckled her seatbelt, but Rex could see the tension in her shoulders. "You don't have to do this," he said softly. "Yes, I do." She turned to face him, her eyes clear and determined. "We both do." Rex nodded, his throat tight. He'd been in countless dangerous situations before, but this felt different. The weight of protecting Lily, of facing down Victor St. John after all these years, it pressed on him like a physical thing. They stepped out of the truck, gravel crunching under their boots. The air smelled of old wood and decay. Rex's mind raced through scenarios, mapping escape routes, identifying potential weapons. Old habits died hard. "Stay close to me," he murmured as they approached the mill's main entrance. "If anything happens—" "Nothing's going to happen," Lily interrupted, though her voice wavered slightly. "We're going to end this. Today." Inside, shafts of dusty sunlight cut through the gloom. Ancient machinery cast strange shadows across the floor, and their footsteps echoed off the high ceiling. Rex's hand stayed near his hip, where he'd tucked away protection, just in case. "Right on time," Victor's voice rang out from above them. Rex and Lily looked up to see Victor St. John standing on the catwalk that crossed the mill's main floor. He was impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that seemed obscenely out of place in the derelict building. His silver hair caught the light, and his smile was sharp as a blade. "Quite the reunion," Victor continued, descending the metal stairs with measured steps. "My wayward daughter and the man who betrayed everything he stood for." "The only betrayal here is what you did to your own daughter," Rex growled, stepping slightly in front of Lily. Victor's laugh echoed through the space. "Protecting her, how noble. Tell me, Rex, does she know about the night you led your brothers into my trap? Does she know how many died because of your nobility?" "That's enough," Lily's voice cut through the tension. "I know everything, Father, about the setups, the betrayals, how you used everyone around you, including me." "Used you?" Victor's face hardened. "I gave you everything. A life of luxury, the best education, connections that would have set you up for life." He took another step closer. "And how do you repay me? By running away with this criminal?" "Better an honest criminal than a lying businessman," Rex said, his voice low and dangerous. Victor's pleasant mask slipped, revealing something cold and cruel beneath. "You always were a fool, Rex." He raised his hand, and suddenly the catwalks above filled with armed men. "Did you really think I'd come alone?" Rex's heart pounded as he counted the threats. At least 6 men, all armed, all with clear shots. He shifted, trying to keep Lily covered while maintaining sight of Victor. "It's over, Lily," Victor said. "Come home. This little adventure of yours has gone on long enough." But before anyone could move, the sound of motorcycles filled the air. Through the mill's broken windows, they could see a line of bikes pulling up outside, their riders dismounting with purposeful intent. Rex recognized the colors they wore, his old crew coming to even the score. The odds had just changed dramatically. The morning sun painted the farmhouse kitchen in soft, golden light. Rex sat at the worn wooden table, his large hands wrapped around a steaming coffee mug. The events at the lumber mill still played through his mind like a fever dream. His old crew showing up just in time, Victor's men dropping their weapons when they realized they were outnumbered, and Victor's face as he realized he'd lost everything. Lily moved quietly around the kitchen, making breakfast. The familiar domestic sounds, eggs cracking against a bowl, bread popping from the toaster, felt surreal after everything they'd been through. Her shoulders were relaxed now, the constant tension finally gone. "Still can't believe it's over," Rex said, his voice rough with emotion. Lily paused in her cooking and turned to face him. "I keep expecting to wake up and find it was all a dream." She tucked a strand of blonde hair behind her ear, a small smile playing at her lips. "That I'm still trapped in his world." Rex stood up and crossed the kitchen, drawing her into his arms. She fit there perfectly, her head resting against his chest. The simple act of holding her felt like a miracle after everything they'd risked. "Your father won't be bothering anyone for a while," Rex said softly. "The evidence we had against him, plus the testimony from his own men. He'll be facing charges for years." Lily nodded against his chest. "I should feel sad, shouldn't I? He's still my father." "You feel what you feel," Rex said. "No should about it." They stayed like that for a moment, just holding each other, until the smell of burning toast broke the spell. Lily laughed, a real, genuine laugh that made Rex's heart skip, and rushed to rescue their breakfast. Later they sat on the front porch, watching the sun climb higher in the sky. The old wooden swing creaked gently beneath them. Rex's property stretched out before them, peaceful and quiet, so different from the chaos they'd left behind. "I was thinking," Lily said, her voice tentative but steady, "maybe we could fix up the old barn, turn it into something useful." Rex glanced at her, surprised. "You're planning to stay then?" She met his gaze, her eyes clear and certain. "Unless you want me to go?" "Never," he said, the word coming out more forcefully than he'd intended. He softened his voice. "This is your home now, for as long as you want it." Lily leaned against him, fitting herself against his side like she belonged there. "I was thinking maybe a workshop, something creative, peaceful, a place to make beautiful things instead of destroying them." Rex wrapped his arm around her shoulders, pulling her closer. The idea of building something new, something good, with Lily by his side filled him with a warmth he hadn't felt in years. "We could do that," he said. "Together." The morning breeze carried the scent of wildflowers from the nearby fields. Birds called to each other from the old oak trees, and in that moment, sitting together on the porch of what was now their home, Rex and Lily felt the last shadows of their past begin to fade, replaced by the promise of something new and beautiful growing between them. The afternoon sun streamed through the barn's dusty windows, as Lily and Rex stood in the open space, surveying the possibilities. Cobwebs hung from the rafters, and old farm equipment gathered dust in the corners, but Lily's eyes sparkled with excitement. "I can see it all so clearly," she said, gesturing with her hands. "We could clean out this whole section, put in some big windows for natural light, maybe set up workbenches along this wall." Rex watched her, amazed at how animated she'd become. Gone was the scared, hesitant woman who'd first knocked on his door. In her place stood someone confident, full of hope. "What kind of things would you make?" he asked, genuinely curious. Lily ran her hand along an old wooden beam. "I used to love working with wood when I was younger, before Father decided it wasn't proper for a St. John to get her hands dirty." She smiled, but there was no bitterness in it anymore. "I'd like to make furniture. Simple things at first. Tables, chairs, maybe some decorative pieces." "You never mentioned that before," Rex said softly. "I buried a lot of dreams trying to be what he wanted." Lily turned to face him. "But now? Now I can be whoever I want to be." Rex's heart swelled at her words. He'd spent so many years looking backward, dwelling on old betrayals and past mistakes. But watching Lily embrace her future made him want to do the same. "We could fix up the roof first," he offered. "Make sure everything's weather-tight before winter comes." Lily's eyes widened at the "we." "You'd help me?" "Course I would." Rex stepped closer, taking her small hand in his large one. "I know my way around tools. Used to help my old man with construction work before—" He trailed off, but Lily squeezed his hand encouragingly. "Before the club?" she asked gently. Rex nodded. "Yeah, seems like a lifetime ago now." Lily moved to stand in front of him, her blue eyes meeting his. "We both get to start over, Rex. Clean slate." The way she said, "we," made his chest tight with emotion. For so long, he'd been alone, convinced that's all he deserved after everything he'd done. But here was this amazing woman, seeing past all his rough edges to something worth loving. "You know," he said, his voice rough with feeling, "I never thought I'd have this again. A real home, someone to share it with." Lily reached up and touched his cheek, her fingers gentle against his beard. "Neither did I. But here we are." Rex leaned into her touch, closing his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, Lily was looking at him with such tenderness it almost broke his heart. She stood on tiptoe and pressed a soft kiss to his cheek. "Thank you," she whispered, "for giving me a chance that first day, for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself." Rex wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close. The barn's dusty air was filled with shafts of golden light, making everything seem magical and new. Lily fitted perfectly against him, her head tucked under his chin, her arms wrapped around his waist. They stood like that for a long moment, holding each other in the quiet afternoon light. No words were needed. They both knew they'd found something rare and precious in each other, something worth protecting, worth building a future around. The late summer breeze rustled through the trees as Rex and Lily stood in front of their new home. It was a modest farmhouse, painted a soft blue, with white trim and a wraparound porch. Nothing fancy, but it was theirs. "Ready?" Rex asked, holding up the key. Lily nodded, squeezing his hand. "More than ready." They walked up the creaking wooden steps together. The key turned smoothly in the lock, and the door swung open to reveal empty rooms full of possibility. Sunlight streamed through the windows, dancing across the hardwood floors. "It needs some work," Rex said, his eyes scanning the walls that could use a fresh coat of paint. "That's what makes it perfect," Lily replied, her voice soft but sure. "We can make it exactly what we want it to be." They spent the morning bringing in boxes from the moving truck. Rex insisted on carrying the heaviest items himself, but Lily worked steadily beside him, unpacking kitchen items and arranging furniture. They moved with an easy rhythm, as if they'd been doing this together for years instead of just starting out. By late afternoon, the kitchen was mostly functional. Lily had arranged her collection of cooking utensils in the drawers, while Rex assembled the dining room table. The smell of coffee filled the air from their first use of the coffee maker in their new home. "Remember when you first came to my place?" Rex asked, watching as Lily hung curtains in the kitchen window. "You looked so scared." "I was," she admitted, stepping back to check if the curtains hung evenly. "But something told me I could trust you, even then." Rex moved to stand behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Never thought I'd end up here, living in a nice house, with someone like you?" "Someone like me?" Lily turned in his arms, raising an eyebrow. "Someone good," he said simply. "Someone who sees the best in people." The afternoon light softened as they continued unpacking. Each box they opened felt like unwrapping a piece of their future together. Lily arranged books on shelves, while Rex hung pictures on the walls. Simple actions that transformed empty rooms into a home. As evening approached, they decided to take a break from unpacking to have their first meal in their new home. Lily prepared a simple dinner, while Rex set the table, using the nice plates they'd bought together. They sat across from each other at their new dining room table, the sunset painting the walls in warm golden hues. Their meal wasn't fancy, just pasta with garlic bread, but it felt special nonetheless. "It's strange," Lily said, looking around at their half-unpacked home. "A year ago, I couldn't imagine ever feeling this free." Rex reached across the table and took her hand. "You did that yourself, Lily. You were strong enough to break away from your father's control." "We both broke free," she corrected him gently. "You from your past, me from mine." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, their joined hands resting on the table between them. The chaos of unpacked boxes surrounded them, but in that moment everything felt perfectly in place. "To new beginnings," Rex said, raising his glass with his free hand. "To new beginnings," Lily echoed, her eyes shining with happiness as she smiled at the man who had helped her find her way home. The rumble of motorcycles filled the quiet country road as Rex and Lily stood on their front porch. 3 bikes pulled into their driveway, kicking up dust in the late afternoon sun. Lily instinctively moved closer to Rex, her hand finding his. "It's okay," Rex said softly, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. "These guys, they're the good ones." The riders dismounted, removing their helmets. The first was a tall man with silver hair and weathered features, who introduced himself as Duke. Behind him came a stockier man called Hawk, his arms covered in faded tattoos similar to Rex's. The third was younger, maybe in his 30s, who went by Tank. "So this is the lady who tamed the bear," Duke said with a warm smile, extending his hand to Lily. His grip was firm but gentle, his eyes kind despite his rough appearance. "I wouldn't say tamed," Lily replied with a small laugh, relaxing slightly. "Maybe just showed him there's more to life than growling at everyone." The men laughed, and Rex's face softened with pride. He'd been nervous about this meeting, but seeing Lily hold her own made his heart swell. "Come on in," Rex gestured toward the house. "Lily's made enough food to feed an army." Inside, the aroma of pot roast and fresh bread filled the air. The men settled around the dining room table, their massive frames making the furniture look almost delicate. Lily brought out plates while Rex grabbed beers from the fridge. "Bear told us how you stood up to your old man," Hawk said as he helped himself to a serving of roast. "That takes guts." "I couldn't have done it without Rex," Lily admitted, taking her seat beside Bear. "Nah," Tank interjected. Bear told us how you were ready to face Victor alone. Said you've got more courage than half the guys he's known. Rex nodded in agreement. She's stronger than she knows. The conversation flowed easily as they ate. The men shared stories about Rex from their younger days, tales that made Lily laugh and Rex groan with embarrassment. But there was no malice in their words, only the warmth of shared history and brotherhood. Remember that time in Reno? Duke started, and Rex immediately tried to stop him. Don't you dare, Rex warned, but he was grinning. Duke told the story anyway, about how Rex had once rescued a stray cat from a bar fight and ended up keeping it for 3 years. Lily's eyes sparkled as she watched Rex try to maintain his tough guy image while being thoroughly exposed as a softie. As the evening wore on, Hawk pulled out a worn leather wallet and showed Lily pictures of his grandkids. Tank talked about the auto repair shop he'd opened with Rex's help. Duke spoke of how they'd all changed over the years, growing from wild young men into something resembling respectable citizens. You know, Duke said, his voice growing serious for a moment. Bear's been like a brother to us for 30 years. When he told us about you, about everything that went down with Victor, we were ready to ride in guns blazing. But Rex wouldn't let you, Lily guessed. Said he had to handle it his way, Hawk confirmed. First time we'd ever seen him choose peace over war. That's when we knew you were special. Lily felt warmth spread through her chest as she looked around the table. These men, with their gruff exteriors and gentle hearts, had accepted her without question. They treated her like family, not because of who her father was, but because of who she was to Rex. The men were sharing another story, their laughter filling the room with a comfortable warmth. Rex's arm rested casually across the back of Lily's chair, and she leaned into him slightly, feeling truly at peace. The waiting room was quiet, except for the gentle hum of a white noise machine and the occasional rustle of magazines. Lily sat with her hands folded in her lap, her foot tapping nervously against the carpeted floor. Rex's large frame filled the chair next to her, his presence steady and reassuring. You don't have to wait, Lily whispered, though she was grateful he had insisted on driving her to her first therapy appointment. I want to, Rex replied simply, his rough hand covering hers. When Dr. Sarah Matthews called her name, Lily's heart jumped. She squeezed Rex's hand once before standing up, smoothing her sweater with trembling fingers. The therapist was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and silver-streaked hair. I'll be right here, Rex promised, as Lily followed Dr. Matthews into her office. The room was warm and inviting, with soft lighting and comfortable chairs. Lily perched on the edge of a plush armchair, her shoulders tense. Dr. Matthews settled across from her, notepad in hand, but not yet writing. So, Lily, she began gently, tell me what brings you here today. Lily took a deep breath. I want to deal with my past. My father, her voice caught, but she pushed through. He controlled everything in my life. And even though I'm free now, sometimes I still feel trapped by the memories. Dr. Matthews nodded encouragingly. That's very common with emotional abuse survivors. How does it affect your current relationships? Rex's... Lily smiled slightly, thinking of the man waiting outside. He's patient, more than I deserve sometimes. But I catch myself waiting for the other shoe to drop, you know? Like maybe one day he'll try to control me too. And how does that make you feel when those thoughts come up? Guilty, Lily admitted. Rex has never been anything but protective and supportive. He's nothing like my father. They spent the hour unpacking Lily's fears, her trust issues, and the way her father's manipulation had shaped her view of relationships. By the end, Lily felt drained, but somehow lighter. 2 weeks later, Rex joined her for a couples session. He filled his usual chair awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable in the therapeutic setting. Dr. Matthews noticed his unease and started with something simple. "Rex, how do you feel when Lily withdraws during moments of stress?" He shifted in his seat, his tattooed hands clasped together. "Helpless, I guess. I want to fix it, but I know I can't just punch her problems away." He glanced at Lily. "Sometimes I don't know if I'm helping or making things worse." "You help," Lily said softly, "just by being there." Dr. Matthews smiled. "Lily, can you tell Rex directly what you need when you're feeling overwhelmed?" Lily turned to face him. I need you to just sit with me sometimes, not try to solve everything. Just be there." Rex's expression softened. "I can do that." They worked through communication exercises, learning to express needs and fears without judgment. Rex opened up about his own insecurities, how his past violence sometimes made him feel unworthy of Lily's trust. Lily shared her fear of abandonment, the deep-seated worry that she wasn't strong enough to stand on her own. "Remember," Dr. Matthews said near the end of their session, "healing isn't linear. There will be good days and hard days. The key is facing them together." Leaving the office, Rex took Lily's hand. They walked to his truck in comfortable silence, both processing the emotional weight of the session. The path ahead wouldn't be easy, but they were committed to walking it side by side. The morning sun filtered through the kitchen window as Lily sat at the small table, surrounded by travel brochures. Rex leaned against the counter, coffee mug in his tattooed hands, watching her with a gentle smile. "What about this one?" Lily held up a glossy page showing a peaceful seaside town. "Ocean Grove. It's small, quiet, not too touristy." Her eyes sparkled with excitement as she pointed to pictures of Victorian buildings and a wooden boardwalk stretching along the shore. Rex moved closer, setting his mug down to examine the brochure. "Looks peaceful," he agreed, his gruff voice softening. "Just what we need." Lily traced her finger along the coastline in the photo. "There's this little bed and breakfast right near the beach." She pulled out another pamphlet, showing a charming white house with blue shutters and a wraparound porch. "The reviews say you can hear the waves from the rooms." Rex settled into the chair beside her, his large frame making the wooden seat creak. "Book it," he said simply, but his eyes were warm with affection. "Whatever makes you happy." Lily's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her laptop. This would be their first real vacation together, a step toward normalcy after everything they'd been through. As she typed in the booking information, Rex's hand covered hers, steadying her fingers. "You deserve this," he said quietly, reading the uncertainty in her expression. "We both do." Lily nodded, clicking the confirmation button. "A whole week," she breathed, letting the reality sink in. "No looking over our shoulders, no past hanging over us, just us and the ocean." Rex pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her temple. "And ice cream," he added with a rare grin. "Can't go to the beach without ice cream." Lily laughed, the sound bright and clear in the morning quiet. "And those little shops with all the seashells and tacky t-shirts?" "Even those," Rex agreed, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "We'll do it all properly. Be regular tourists." They spent the next hour planning their trip, marking places they wanted to visit on a map. Lily insisted on finding the best local seafood restaurants, while Rex looked up motorcycle routes along the coastal roads. The simple act of planning something normal, something couples did every day, felt like a precious gift. "We should get you some beach clothes," Lily mused, eyeing Rex's usual outfit of dark jeans and a leather vest. "Maybe some shorts?" Rex raised an eyebrow, looking horrified at the suggestion. "Don't push it, darling." Lily giggled, picturing the imposing former Hell's Angel in flowery board shorts. "At least a t-shirt? Something that won't cook you alive in the sun? Fine, he conceded with a mock growl. But nothing with palm trees. As they continued planning, Lily felt the last traces of tension leaving her shoulders. This wasn't just a vacation. It was a statement. A declaration that they were moving forward, building something new together. They were no longer defined by her father's schemes or Rex's troubled past. They were just Rex and Lily, a couple planning their first trip together. Rex must have noticed her expression soften because he reached over and squeezed her hand. "What's on your mind?" "Just thinking how normal this feels," she admitted. "Planning a vacation, arguing about beach clothes. It's nice." "Normal's not so bad," Rex agreed, pulling her into his arms. "Especially with you." They stood there in the kitchen, holding each other, surrounded by travel brochures and the promise of new memories to be made. The beach town waited for them, with its gentle waves and quiet streets, ready to be the backdrop for the next chapter in their story. The morning paper lay spread across the kitchen table, its bold headlines impossible to ignore. Victor St. John Empire crumbles. New evidence surfaces. Lily's hand shook as she reached for her coffee mug, her eyes fixed on her father's name. Rex noticed her tension immediately. He moved behind her chair, his large hands settling on her shoulders. "We don't have to read it," he said softly. "No, I need to know." Lily's voice was quiet but determined. She leaned forward, scanning the article. New investigations had uncovered more of Victor's illegal dealings, leading to further charges. His empire was falling piece by piece. Rex pulled up a chair beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "He can't hurt us anymore," he reminded her, but his own jaw was tight with tension. "I know." Lily pushed the paper away. "But seeing his name, it brings everything back." She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to stop the slight trembling in her hands. "Sometimes I wonder if we'll ever really be free of him." Rex was silent for a moment, his weathered face thoughtful. "Maybe we're looking at it wrong," he said finally. "Maybe it's not about being free of the past. Maybe it's about not letting it control us anymore." Lily turned to look at him, seeing the understanding in his eyes. He knew better than anyone how the past could haunt you. His own history with the hellsangels had left its mark, visible in more than just his tattoos. "When I left the club," Rex continued, his voice rough with emotion, "I thought I had to erase everything about that life. But you can't erase who you were. Those experiences, good and bad, they make us who we are." The morning sun streamed through the kitchen window, casting warm light across their faces. Outside, birds chirped, and a gentle breeze rustled the trees. Simple, peaceful sounds that seemed at odds with their heavy conversation. "I used to hate being Victor St. John's daughter," Lily admitted. "I wanted to change my name, move across the country, become someone else entirely." She reached for Rex's hand, finding comfort in his solid presence. But running from it didn't help. It just made me feel more afraid. Rex squeezed her hand. "The difference is now we face it together. Your father, my past with the club, they're part of our story, but they don't get to write the ending." Lily felt something shift inside her at his words. The anxiety that had gripped her when she saw the newspaper began to loosen its hold. "You're right," she said slowly. "We can't change where we came from, but we can choose where we go from here." Rex pulled her closer, and she leaned into his embrace. The familiar scent of leather and motorcycle oil that always clung to him was comforting now, a reminder of how far they'd both come. "Besides," Rex added with a hint of his usual gruffness, "all that stuff made us strong enough to handle whatever comes next. Together." Lily nodded against his chest, feeling the truth of his words. Their pasts had shaped them, had even brought them together. They couldn't erase those chapters of their lives, but they could write new ones, better ones. The newspaper still lay on the table, Victor's name bold against the white paper. But now it seemed less threatening, more like a reminder of everything they'd overcome. They were survivors, both of them. And whatever shadows their pasts cast, they would face them side by side. The late afternoon sun painted golden streaks across the farmhouse's wooden floors. Lily stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the simple white sundress she'd chosen for their anniversary celebration. A year had passed since they'd faced down her father and chosen their own path together. Rex appeared in the doorway, his massive frame filling the space. Despite his attempt to dress up in a clean button-down shirt, his wild beard and tattoos still gave him that rugged appearance she'd grown to love. "Everyone's starting to arrive," he said softly. Lily smiled, remembering how far they'd come. The farmhouse was their sanctuary now, transformed from a place of hiding to a home filled with warmth and love. "I still can't believe we're doing this," she said, turning to face him. "Having people over, celebrating, being normal?" Rex's eyes crinkled with amusement. He crossed the room and took her hands in his. His rough palms against her smooth skin were a familiar comfort now. "Never thought I'd see the day either." Outside, they could hear the rumble of motorcycles, some of Rex's old crew arriving. But these sounds no longer brought fear or tension. Instead, they were the welcome arrival of friends who'd stood by them through everything. "Jake and Maria are already setting up the barbecue," Rex said, referring to his most trusted friends from his hellsangels days. "And Sarah from your therapy group just pulled up." Lily's heart swelled. Their world had expanded so naturally over the past year. What started as two wounded souls finding shelter in each other had grown into a rich tapestry of friendships and connections. They walked out onto the back porch together, where string lights twinkled in the early evening air. The yard was filling with an odd mix of people: former bikers with their leather vests, couples from their neighborhood, even a few of Lily's co-workers from the bookstore where she'd started working. Jake, a burly man with gray-streaked hair, was manning the grill while his wife Maria arranged platters of food on a long table. Sarah, Lily's friend from group therapy, was chatting easily with some of Rex's old crew members. The sight of their various worlds blending so seamlessly brought tears to Lily's eyes. "You okay?" Rex asked, his arm sliding around her waist. "More than okay," she replied, leaning into him. "I just never imagined this was possible. Having a real life, real friends, being able to trust again." Rex's hold tightened slightly. "Know what you mean. Spent so many years looking over my shoulder, keeping people at arm's length. Never thought I'd have this either." The evening air was sweet, with the scent of grilling food and fresh-cut grass. Someone had started playing music, and laughter drifted across the yard. It was everything they'd fought for. This simple, precious peace. Maria approached them with 2 glasses of champagne. "Happy anniversary, you two," she said warmly, pressing the glasses into their hands. "To the most unlikely couple I've ever met, and the best thing that could have happened to our grumpy old bear." Rex growled playfully at the nickname, but his eyes were soft as he looked at Lily. They raised their glasses, surrounded by the family they'd chosen, in the home they'd made together. The shadows of their past had faded into something manageable, replaced by the bright reality of their present. The sound of their glasses clinking together was lost in the general celebration, but the moment felt profound. They'd built this life, this love, this peace, from the ashes of their broken pasts. And it was more beautiful than either of them had ever dared to dream. I hope you like this story. Please share what's your favorite part of the story and where in the world you are watching from. Have a wonderful day.